Hi, everyone. So I'm joined by Rosy Ahuja once again. As you know, Rosy is a nutritional therapist, and we're going to touch upon a lot more topics on hormonal imbalance in women. Thank you very much, Rosy, for joining us again today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Rosie, we have a lot of questions on PCOS, so polycystic ovarian syndrome, and as you probably know, this is like a topic that comes up so many times, and given how many women actually suffer from it. So why don't we start with a quick intro to PCOS and what is it actually?
Okay, so polycystic ovary syndrome essentially is one of the different hormonal imbalances that can occur in women. 1 in 5 women suffer from PCOS or some form of hormonal imbalance or hormonal gynecological problems. And PCOS essentially is due to the polycystic, so that the ovaries, their job is to produce hormones. Okay, so when you suffer from polycystic ovaries, then essentially what happens is that there is a disruption in the balance of the hormones and how the hormones are being produced. Okay, there is a very strong link with insulin dependency, okay, and irregularity of insulin, and essentially too much insulin being produced, and that being linked to PCOS. And that leads to one of the reasons of way that you deal with PCOS is really you've got to look at the insulin production within a woman, okay, and try to regulate insulin production, because that is the only one of the main ways to actually overcome PCOS, okay, with lifestyle factors, with food, with supplements, and it's again the combination of all of these working together to support women who suffer from any sort of imbalance. But essentially with PCOS, there is an imbalance of the estrogen and the testosterone and production of progesterone, okay? And usually these are associated with stress as well, because there is something called cortisol steal. And so if you think of your hormones, okay, they are all being produced, it's like a cascade of hormones, okay, and actually your sex hormones are right at the bottom of that pyramid. Okay, so if we are stressed, okay, our body will produce more cortisol to help us deal with a stressful situation at basically the mercy of your sex hormones. So that's why you do need to think about lifestyle factors essentially to make sure that your stress response is you are controlling your stress response. Otherwise, they will have an impact on your hormones.
Okay, great, thank you. And so again, this question came up so many times. So what is the impact of androgens, including, excessive facial hair growth in women and acne? So
Okay.
this is very common, right?
Right. So that's the same thing. So it's the imbalance of the testosterone. Okay. It is too much testosterone being produced. Okay. And actually an imbalance of all of those hormones. So essentially, when we are trying to balance our hormones, we need to consider how we're going to regulate our estrogen. Okay. Because your estrogen is actually what is out of sync. And we live, unfortunately, in an environment which is so estrogenic now. Okay, so when I'm talking about lifestyle factors, I'm even talking about plastics in our environment. Okay, we know now that even the fish that we eat, the amount of plastic that they consume, okay, is making the fish more feminized, okay, because of the level of estrogen that we're eating, okay, in the food. Now, if we think about how we regulate, or how we try and minimize the impact of the environment on us in itself, is to make sure that we reduce our plastic. We don't store food in plastic, okay? Plastic, especially hot food, will seep into your food, and these are all forms of what we call xenoestrogens. And xenoestrogens are things which actually mimic estrogen, which are in our environment. Now, unfortunately, in our water, we know that there's plastic in our water. We know that there's hormones in our water, okay? And you think about things which are being flushed down the toilet, okay? How many women are on the pill, okay?
Yeah.
And you think this is all contributing to an estrogenic environment, okay? I mean, the amount of heavy metals in our food, all right? The pesticides in the food, the hormones that, the chicken is being fed that we are then eating, or the animals are being fed, or the eggs we're eating because they've been given hormones in themselves, okay? This all leads to, this is part of the dysregulation of your hormones, and it's all contributing. So we've got to think about, within our own personal environment, what are we doing? There are so many chemicals that we were exposed to on a day-to-day basis, okay? From little things like that you don't even think about, like air fresheners that we're using, those plugins, they're chemicals, okay? So making little changes, thinking about, okay, am I using a natural product? Is the reed diffuser I'm using, is that natural, or is that full of chemicals as well? Because you're breathing everything in. When I'm storing my food, what am I storing my food in? Okay. When am I using cling film to cover everything in my food? That is the worst. Okay. So, because that, again, it melts. So people put that into the microwave and then they cover their food with that, and then that's going to seep into your food. So, it's not just the food we're eating, it's also what we're doing with that food that we're eating. Okay. So when you go and get a ready meal and it's in a plastic container, you could easily take that out. It's frozen, take it out, put it into something, ceramic dish, and then put it into the oven. You're not heating that plastic, which is then going to be heated into it's going to like seep into your food. So buying a basic water filter, there are some great water filters that you can get, which actually eliminate all of the toxins in the water. However, I know how pricey they are. How you can get, a basic water filter, it'll cost you about £100. Or even if you can't get that, a Brita water filter is going to be doing something to the water. But it's actually the estrogenic environment that we're living in now. And if we think about, in the 70s, so one example of how this is affecting us all, in the 70s, on average, a girl would start her period when she was 14, 15, 16, okay? Now we're having girls start their period as young as 9, 10, 11. And you think about how quickly they're therefore being exposed to the hormones in the environment as well. That is leading to that, okay? Then you're going to end up with a host of hormonal problems because of that, okay?
Absolutely. So, the standard way of dealing with PCOS is, doctors usually recommend a metformin, for example, or spironolactone. But like, I think a lot of women, including myself, like I have PCOS. So I always wonder, like, is there an alternative, like a natural way of dealing with it and not having to go on, long-term go on these medication?
Well, like I said, I think you need to think about, first of all, if we think about food. Okay, so you can get low GI foods. Okay, so low glycemic index. So because basically, I think I mentioned in the last one as well, it's about balancing your blood sugar levels throughout the day. There are a host of ways in which you can balance your blood sugars. Okay, the first thing is always make sure that you're having fats and you're having protein with every meal. Okay, not your simple carbs. Okay, but your fats and your proteins, because they are going to regulate that insulin spike that you're being exposed to. Okay, making sure that you're having low GI foods. So you can get, if you go on the internet and you just look up low GI foods, there are so many foods that you can eat which aren't going to increase the insulin, in terms of vegetables, in terms of meats, in terms of, and it will tell you everything. Okay. Now, I forgot to mention, but dairy is a massive contributor, because unfortunately, what cows are being fed, and then we are drinking that milk. Now, there is a lot of research to suggest that, the milk is also pasteurized. So, the benefits that you're going to get from the bacteria, the good bacteria, is all gone because it's been pasteurized, it's homogenized. I mean, there is, if if you want to drink milk, then there is non-homogenized milk that you can get, like Waitrose. So that's a process of filtration that you go through. but you can get non-homogenized milk, which is, it is pasteurized, but it's not, so it hasn't gone through two different processes, it's just gone through one filtering process. But limiting that, because that actually increases hormone levels as well. Okay, and it's got IGF in, which is insulin growth factor in milk. And therefore, if you drink milk, you're going to be increasing your insulin anyway. Okay? And that's why lots of nutritional therapists will say, go for alternative milks. Okay, so that, you know, go for your plant-based milks. But then you've got to be mindful, always check the ingredients, because they might have sugar added into that. And it's also these hidden sugars. So if you are having foods which, you know, like the average sauce, okay, like, you know, you think, oh, it's just a little bit of sauce, I'll have a little bit of sauce, but always check how much sugar is in that product, because actually it's unnecessary. We ingest so much sugar, and it's very, very unnecessary to have so much sugar in your diet. So like, always remember that, you know, 6 grams of sugar, between 5 and 6 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon. And if you keep that in mind, and you will see some of these sugars, you know, these sauces, 30 grams, 40 grams, and you're just like, you know, and I always say to the kids, please have a look at how much sugar that is in there. Okay. So I mean, looking at the sugars in the products that you're having is really, really important too. Okay. So that you can reduce your sugar load. And then sleep is massive, massive, because if you are not working with your circadian rhythm, so that is your, you know, your general sleep cycle. So, and making sure that your body is ready for the sleep, and your body is getting enough sleep. And one way is to monitor, you know, make sure that you're monitoring your sleep. Like, you know, there's Fitbits out there. Like, I've got this ring, which is called an Oura ring, which is a smart ring, which does the same thing. So it monitors how I'm sleeping. And, you know, and then you can make changes. Like, I know, obviously over Christmas, you know, I've been sleeping late. It picks up on things, and that actually shows you your REM sleep. It shows you how much you're sleeping. But something that I invested in recently is just, you know, blue light blocking glasses. So I put those on. I've got them here, actually. I'll show you. So they just basically, you know, they block the blue light at night, and that will improve your sleep. And the reason that is important, so I wear those from going to sleep. I try to put them on about 8 o'clock, and you just, so when you're looking at a screen, you're blocking all the blue light, and, you know, and that is really important, because it's telling your body that you're getting ready for, you know, sleep. And like, you know, making sure that, say, you have a magnesium bath before you go to bed. But sleep is so, so important, because it's when our body is rejuvenating, it's when it's repairing, and if you are not, and it's when it's producing so much of your hormones that you need to regulate. So, I mean, I mentioned last time that serotonin, which is your happy hormone, and I believe there was a question about anxiety as well. So, you know, serotonin, you know, between 80 and 90% is produced in the stomach. Okay, so serotonin is needed as your happy hormone. A precursor to serotonin is melatonin. Melatonin is produced at night. Okay, and it's when you're asleep. And the best ways to get the most melatonin produced is if it's in a very dark room. So if your bedroom isn't pitch black at night, that also will have an impact on your sleep and your quality of sleep. So eye patches, you know, making sure that you have the most restful sleep is so, so important in regulating, you know, your hormones. So even when you're talking about anxiety, or we're talking about estrogen, it comes under that umbrella of hormones. And again, if you think you've got stress at the top, you've got your cortisol at the top. If you're stressed, yes, your cortisol is going to be produced, but then your other hormones aren't, because then you have your thyroid hormones, and then you have your sex hormones. They're not going to be produced. Okay, it's always at their detriment. So ensuring that your stress is, you control your stress, whatever it is that you want to do to manage your stress, monitor your stress, so you know that you are relaxed. Okay, and it's easy to say manage your stress, but you've got to do something about it, because it's not going to happen by itself. So whether that is you exercise, or whether that is you meditate, or whether that is you read a book at night, or whatever it is to do, if you can't, to avoid the external factors that are causing you stress, sometimes we can't, we have the situations that are going to be stressful, but making sure, maybe you journal, maybe you write things down, you find your own strategy, but that is so important in all hormone related illnesses.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I've heard this so much about sleep, and unfortunately, we don't really pay attention to that. And like you mentioned, like there's so many tools nowadays, the smart tools, Fitbit or whatever. And I recently started using one of them, and I was really surprised to look at my sleep pattern. You know how much it tells you the percentage of restlessness at night. So when you were not just tossing around and not really getting the sleep, and then it based on all of that gives a score. And then when my score wasn't good, I was like, okay, I need to do something about it. And I've consciously made an effort to make sure that I was going to bed a little early, even if I'm reading something or just putting on some music, on like a meditational music or something, that to just calm my body down. And it did make a massive difference. So it's really, really important.
I mean, what you just have to remember when you're monitoring things is that your deep sleep is when your physical body is recovering. But your REM sleep is when your brain is recovering.
Okay.
So if you are not sleeping, and one indication of that is dreaming. If you are dreaming, you are getting REM sleep, and that's really important, because anything you've learned, and cognitively speaking, and then also they've made links with degenerative illnesses, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, etc. They've linked that to sleep. And if you aren't getting good quality REM sleep, and there are things you can do, hence why I bought those glasses, okay, but there's lots of things that you can do. Cold showers are another thing.
Okay.
It's very, very difficult, but a great hormone balancer, okay, and if you can manage it, I mean, I've got to doing probably 2 minutes at the end of a hot shower, okay, but you will find that even that really does improve the quality of your sleep if you just have a cold shower, because you need to make sure that your body is at the right temperature. And actually, one thing just to mention, linking on, as we are talking about hormones, we know that you're not going to get a good quality of sleep, and especially for women with hormone imbalances, a lot of them do feel very hot. Okay, so again, it's about monitoring you're basically monitoring your cycle, because the first 15 days of your cycle, your body temperature will be lower, but the 15 to 28 days, your body temperature will increase. So at that point, you think about, right, your sleep will be disturbed if you are too hot. So what do you have to do? Make sure that your room is cooler. Okay, and there's lots of other host things that you can do, like have some sage tea to cool you down. So you're working with your body, and you know what your body needs, and that is actually coming to terms with understanding what you need as an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got another question from someone who said that they had uterine fibroids and they're anemic as well due to the condition. So they are taking some iron pills to deal with that. And they're still waiting for a specialist gynecologist appointment. Is there anything that they can do? I believe this is kind of, again, hormonal imbalance, playing its part.
Okay, so again, uterine fibroids, it's estrogen dominance. Okay, so everything I've mentioned in terms of lifestyle, but then obviously there are foods which are called phytoestrogens, and their job is to balance out our estrogen. So phytoestrogen foods, for example, any broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, chickpeas, they're all phytoestrogen foods, which are going to be really, really beneficial. Okay, and broccoli seeded sprouts is another one. So if you I don't know, like I sprout my own, so but you can get sort of seeded sprouts, which are not like when you go and what you have in Chinese food. These are little sprouts, and they do sell them in the regular supermarkets, but you can sprout your own. Broccoli seeded sprouts have a lot of chemicals in them that will regulate your hormone imbalances. In fact, and having 1 tablespoon of broccoli seeded sprouts is equivalent to having a whole head of like broccoli. Okay, they have that much, they're that potent in sense. So, you know, just having 2 tablespoons in a salad is going to support your hormonal imbalance. Okay, so, and with, again, going back to the GI foods and linking it back to all the sugar, you know, is massive. And another one is magnesium rich foods. Okay, so magnesium rich foods are going to balance and they're going to regulate, and they're so important for women to ensure that their magnesium is optimum. And you know, like, another way, I suppose, to get like a lot of phytoestrogens in is to do a juice. I mean, to do like, you know, it doesn't sound great, but a combination of cabbage and broccoli, and, you know, so the stalks of the broccoli, what I tend to do is the stalks of cauliflower, the stalks of broccoli, I'll keep that and then I'll juice that, as opposed to wasting it, which is probably, you know, you're not wasting your food. But sugar, unfortunately, is the biggest problem that we have in, you know, I would say, in society at large. And it's the hidden sugars that I keep saying. And think about what food is going to turn into sugar. Okay. And unfortunately, all carbohydrates will turn into sugar eventually. So it's regulating that sugar. And I know it's very difficult to do, and I know that it's Christmas time and everybody is just indulging. Okay. Or, you know, just remember that actually can cause problems. And the other thing is ensuring that the lectins in your food are another. So lectins are, you know, they're present naturally in a lot of foods, and it's almost like, if you think of any lentils, or you think of seeds, and you see that they're quite shiny, okay, that's indicative that they're quite high in lectins. And actually lectins stop absorption of other foods, and they are linked to leaky gut. So what we need to do, if we're eating those foods, is to reduce the lectin content in those. And one thing is to soak everything, okay, to make sure that you soak the lentils for 24 hours. I put some apple cider vinegar in there as well to reduce the amount of lectin. So they're having a 24-hour soak, and then you are trying to cook them slowly, so that, you know, that you're reducing the level of lectins, because that will actually, it impacts on your gut quite substantially, because, and they're anti-nutrient, so they stop absorption. And the reason that they're shiny is nature's way to stop insects from actually eating them. But obviously it stops us from absorbing them as well. So if you're going to have high lectin foods, or all your lentils, etc., and certain foods like tomatoes and peppers also have high lectins, just make sure you've got to prepare them in a way that allows you to absorb them. Okay. The other thing with sort of estrogen dominance and, you know, endometritis, etc., is flaxseed. Flaxseed is a must in women's diets. And there's also, so when we're working with our cycle, okay, there is we call it seed cycling. So I don't know if any of the listeners will have heard of this, but with seed cycling, you basically have to cycle different seeds. So you have 2 jars. I wish I'd put them in the fridge, but there's 2 jars in the fridge. So one jar has pumpkin seeds and flaxseed, and those are, you grind them, you keep them in the fridge. The other one has sunflower and sesame seed. So the first 15 days of your cycle, okay, you grind both up. They're in 2 separate jars, and they are working with regulating your hormones. So balancing your estrogen, balancing your progesterone as you need it. So like the first 15 days, you seed cycle with flaxseed and the pumpkin seed. So, you know, generally you have 1 to 2 tablespoons. And I put that into, like, say, you know, some, either in my juice or my smoothie or in some kefir. Okay, so 2 spoons of that. And then you do that from day 1 to 15 of your cycle, assuming you're on a 28-day cycle. And then from day 16 to 28, you have the sesame and the sunflower, because they are supporting the progesterone. Okay, and seed cycling is one easy thing that all women could do, which would help to regulate hormones and to regulate, you know, especially with yeah, like with PCOS, as you were saying, like excessive bleeding or painful periods, etc. These, all of these things, headaches, insomnia, and unfortunately, you know, there's a host of problems that are associated with imbalanced hormones, and it's so important that the two things that we're getting our gut right, which I talked about last time, and then supporting hormones to make sure that they are balanced, because your life will just run smoother if you're imbalanced with your hormones. Then, you know, and there's other little things that you can do. I mean, there's something, the Australian batch flower essences. So you can buy those anywhere. I mean, I can tell anyone where to buy them, but they have a blend which is called Women's Essence. Okay. And it's just a flower blend. And you just have 7 drops of that. You put that under your tongue in the morning and 7 drops at night under your tongue. And that is it. And that, even that will support, you know, mood and just general well-being of women. And, you know, these are specially formulated. They're not expensive. It's about £10 for a little bottle. And you just utilizing and helping your body to support, you know, you're supporting your body to, you know, to support you, to support your hormones, you know. So like, also like, you know, like I mentioned before, the magnesium baths, amazing. Okay, making sure you have a probiotic or having probiotic foods, you know, essential to, you know, like for example, olives. You know, easy one to do. You can have olives into a salad, and they're an easy one, and it acts as a probiotic, and it acts as a good fat, and so they're supporting, you know, the hormone balances. But fats, going back to hormonal imbalances, you know, we've been convinced, as you know, for the last 20-30 years, that, you know, I've mentioned this, that fats are the demon, but actually sugar is the demon. Sugar is what's going to lead to dysregulation of basic every system in your body. So if you're going to, you know, try and eradicate anything, I would say it's focus on the sugar and leave the fats. Go for the fats. You know, the good fats are essential. We need them. Essential fatty acids. That's why they're called EFAs, because they are essential, you know, and we have to ingest them because we can't produce certain ones. So, you know, we need to have good fats in our diet. You know, another one, balancing your hormones. If there are fish eaters, having wild fish, you know, wild caught fish and oily fish. So I mentioned that before, I believe, the SMASH diet. So making sure you're having your oily fish will also help your mitochondria, which is your energy factories, produce the energy that is required.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much. And you know, when we're talking about the seeds, you know, in the cycle. So, you know, just to be clear, the start of the cycle is when you start your period, going all the way to the.
That's correct. Yeah. So sorry, day 1 is when first day of the bleed, and then so as you progress, so you know, that's when you want your pumpkin and your flax, and if you will find that if you even do that daily for 2 or 3 months, you will find a massive improvement. Because, you know, it's difficult to get things into your diet, so you, without, unless you're thinking about it. Obviously you can go and find a recipe, like there's some great recipes out there where you are using a lot of flaxseed, and however, if you make something a routine and just think, right, I'm going to do that as part of my routine, then you're done, and you know that, you know, you will get benefit from it. Just one more thing to mention about flaxseed is that flax seeds can go very rancid very quickly, because they're a fat. So remember, all fats can go rancid. So even with your oils, try to keep them in the fridge as much as you can, not out on the surface, because they will get spoiled in, you know, the light and the heat, etc. But with flaxseed, try and buy flaxseed which are either cold pressed, they've been cold milled. Okay, so if they've been milled, pre-milled, and you keep them in the freezer, the packet, once you've opened it, keep it in the freezer. They will not freeze. They naturally, they don't freeze into a clump, so they will be fine. But if you can't find cold milled ones, then that means they've been treated with heat. So if they've been treated with heat, they're already rancid before you've even had them. In that case, buy whole flax seeds, mill them yourself. Like I've just got a little coffee grinder, and I mill all my seeds in that. So, and then keep them in the fridge with all seeds, with all fats. Remember that they will spoil. Airtight container in the fridge, and so that you just open it when you use it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So yeah, so other things related to PCOS, like we got some questions about weight gain. So people who have PCOS tend to gain weight, and again, there's whole issue around fertility with
Yeah.
PCOS. So I guess you've already touched upon some of the things. Is there anything in particular you would say
So
about
I think with weight gain, okay, it's related to the insulin, right? So,
that?
unfortunately, and then, sort of the heritis, and that's all due to testosterone. So
Yeah,
it comes back to balance again.
balancing. Yeah,
It's all about balance. So making sure you're sleeping right, making sure you're exercising, even if I know the goals are hard,
yeah,
okay? But, even if you're just trying work, just do 10 minutes. Just say to yourself, I'm doing 10 minutes a day, and that's it. Don't do it. And then build on it. Because as you see benefit, then it inspires you.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But don't set yourself such unachievable goals that you're going to feel deflated because you don't achieve them. Little bite-sized chunks. And
yeah,
if you do all of these together, then that will help improve.
yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about exercise, we're talking about sleep hygiene, phones not in bedrooms. I'm a big stickler for that,
Okay.
because if your phone is in your bedroom, you're going to reach out for it. It's
Yeah.
impossible not to. And this is why I explain to the kids that they're made to be addictive. They are engineered to make us addictive. So the
Yeah.
only way that you're not going to touch that is if it's not even in the same room.
Loves that. Yeah.
So my phone is not in my bedroom. Sleep hygiene, I don't watch TV. I try to read a book, okay? I've bought the glasses, all of these sleep hygiene routines, dark room
Yeah.
or eye patches if you haven't got a completely dark room. That's all really important because, again, you're going with your circadian rhythms, your
Mhm.
phytoestrogen foods. So making
Mhm.
sure that those are in your diet on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
like I said, the broccoli seeded sprouts are so, so important.
Mhm.
Okay. Controlling the xenoestrogens that
Yeah.
you're being exposed to. So within the environment, like I said, the plastics
Plastics.
are are horrendous, honestly. So what I do, if it's a little tip for people, is that when I have a glass jar, which I've got a sauce in, I just keep that. I store my food in that. So, it's sustainable as well. I'm not buying anything new, but you're storing it in glass, and you're not allowing plastic. It's not touching your food. But
Mm.
also be mindful of, like, even the tin food that you're buying,
Yeah.
like that's got, the lining of that tin, it's got BPA in it.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, these are all little things
Mhm.
that will affect your estrogen levels and your hormone levels
Mm.
because they, like I mentioned before, they're estrogen mimickers. And we
Mm.
need to be consciously aware of that and try to keep your environment as clean as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, because these little things, it's an accumulation effect, isn't it, of all
Yeah.
these things which are building on each other that
Yeah.
eventually, they tip the balance.
Balancing.
And with weight loss as well, massively about lectins. I would
Mm.
be really conscious about lectins because some people find that, if you've got to control the lectins because they are actually also reducing um, the microbiome, the good bacteria.
Mhm.
And what they found, I don't know any of the listeners, and this is really far out there, but actually this is the new therapy that they're doing. And they found that in the microbiome, so they've tested people's stools, okay, their samples, and they found that people have different bacteria,
Mhm.
completely different bacteria in their guts. And it's basically fecal therapy. So they've used the stool of some people
Mhm.
who, I know it sounds really disgusting, but this is a therapy that they're using for
Yeah.
colitis, for Crohn's disease, for not so much for IBS because it's not considered as like, but IBD.
Yeah.
And they're using that because they know that the bacteria is what is influencing your gut. So
Okay.
like if the more populated your gut is with different bacteria, and I'm talking, there should be trillions and trillions in there of
Mhm.
different bacteria, the better you are going to be. So some people can't lose weight
Yeah.
because of the bacteria.
Yeah.
Now, the one way to improve your gut bacteria is
Mhm.
to ensure that you're getting a variety of vegetables into your food, into your
Mhm.
diet, right? So I'm talking like back in our ancestral times, we would eat like 50 to 100 different types of food. Now, if an individual would count what the variety of food they will eat, It's usually, some people don't even eat 5 different foods,
Yeah.
you know, and excuse me. And therefore, having the variety of food is so, so important.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Um, so yeah, I think we kind of touched upon this about the conventional treatments of the pill and metformin for PCOS, so that's okay, I guess. And any other, so we talk, like, with PCOS, it's it's a lot of the times that it's said that there's like inflammation, a lot of inflammation. Is there anything to deal with inflammation that's caused by PCOS, which leads to several other symptoms, I guess, like whether it's spots, acne, or inflammation in general?
So anti-inflammatory foods are massively important. So
Yeah.
we've already mentioned sort of your fish, your oily fish, good fats. They are all anti-inflammatory foods. But also, like, haldi is amazing. Turmeric
Yeah.
in your diet
Yeah.
is absolutely amazing. And if you have turmeric, put it next to the gas cooker, so whenever you're making, just sprinkle a little bit. But also, you can do an anti-inflammatory shot, which will help with inflammation. So in the anti-inflammatory shot, you can put haldi. Make sure that it is like you've added a little bit of fat to it. So bunke, as we say in Punjabi, so just a little bit of fat to it, because that just helps with absorption.
Okay.
So haldi, ginger. So you can either do grated ginger, juice of ginger, black pepper, and a little bit of honey. But the honey, make sure that it's raw honey. So I'm not talking about the honey that you're going to buy in the supermarket, because again, that's been pasteurized.
Pasteurized, yeah.
Okay. And the benefit of having honey is that it's got probiotics in it, it's got the bacteria. But if you buy a pasteurized version, you're just having sugar, essentially. So half a teaspoon of that. And also cinnamon. So cinnamon is a great blood sugar regulator. So if you wake up in the morning and have cinnamon, water, or last thing at night, that also happens with, it's a natural sweet food, but it really supports blood sugar balancing. So either, you can get cinnamon tea bags, or you can put it into this anti-inflammatory shot, and just make a jar of it and keep it. You can either do dry powder as well, dry ginger powder, if you wanted to do just a powder version, or you could do fresh ginger juice, whatever suits you. And have that on a regular basis. And that will support. The other thing is guarella powder is, so guarella in, I don't know what they're called in English. So,
oh yeah, is a bitter gourd, something like that. Yeah,
maybe bitter. So, like you can get the powder. So that is, so for diabetics.
Oh yeah.
They say really supports with sugar, insulin. So it's going to support with insulin here as well. So if you just have half a teaspoon of that as well, because a lot of your acne and skin-related diseases, are also associated with sugar. So acne, it can happen depending on where it is. It tells you a lot. So usually, if it's around the mouth area, the jawline here, then it's usually hormonal imbalances. If it's around here, it's usually stomach or food intolerances. So that depending on where it is, it can actually, you can tell a lot about the state of health. But having just some guarella, quarter powder, a quarter spoon of, or to half a spoon if they can manage it, is very, very bitter. But it's bitter for a reason. For generally thinking about bitter foods is really important, because the bitters obviously are going to offset the sugar, the sugar release. And that's really what we're trying to avoid, is to avoid the sugar spikes again. So anything you can do in your diet to reduce sugar spikes is going to support with your hormones.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
And in terms of, like, say, if somebody wanted to have supplements, or then there are a variety of female supplements that you can have. So so there is something called Agnus castus, if the listeners have heard of that, and that is good for general female issues, right? Generally for most PMS symptoms, you can have that. But what I would say with all supplements is just to go slow on the supplements. Like, do not, because you've got to see how your body's going to respond to that.
Yeah.
Okay. There's so DIM as well. That is a supplement that you can, but basically that is sulforaphane, which is in the broccoli that I was saying about, and all the cruciferous vegetables, but it's in the caps form. So you're having a really, really strong dose of that. So we know that actually supports with estrogen dominance, and that can support. But if anybody wanted support with supplements, I mean, they can contact me through you, and that's, I wouldn't mind talking about that at all, you know, to them. But again, it comes back to, well, with the skin is what I've said, food intolerances, or it's going to be hormonal imbalances. So it comes back to what we've already said, the stress, the lifestyle, you know, the exercise, the food, you know, making sure you are eradicating the bad foods and increasing the good foods. And with the sugar, you know, it is fundamentally addictive, and that's what we have to remember, that you know, it is supposed to have the same addictive qualities as cocaine. Okay, so when you think of it like that, you know, you've got to think, right, what can I do to support my body to not want it, you know? And you know, intermittent fasting will help with blood sugar balancing as well a lot, and we mentioned that last time. But there's a host of different things that you can do to try and support yourself, and in terms of estrogen dominance and any hormonal imbalances.
And you know, you mentioned about the anti-inflammatory shot, and how often should you be taking it?
Every morning. So if you've done the powdered version, a quarter to a half teaspoon in some water. And not, if you're one of these people who likes to drink things slowly, then you can you know, enjoy it. But I'm one of those people who likes to throw it and then knock it back, and that's it. You've done. You haven't thought. You don't it again. So every morning, and especially at the moment as well, with the cold as well, and with all COVID going around, you know, just for your chest and to build up your own immunity and to suppress the inflammatory response, it would benefit everybody. Really. You know, you could just do it as a general well-being thing.
And we talked about the powder, the bitter gourd, the chlorella powder. And how often would you take that?
Daily as well, but a quarter to half a teaspoon. Just don't ever take that before you're exercising or anything, because it can drop your blood sugars quite, you know, because that's its job. So, you know, just take it like when you're going to be relaxed, and, you know, or you're just before food is probably a good time to take it as well.
I mean, that's really interesting, because, you know, trying to counter the sugars, and, you know, if it actually helps to you know, bring down, you know, whatever the sugars are causing, that's really, really an easy way of dealing with that. Sugar is the problem, right? So, you know, if there's any take-home message, it would be that. So look at what food you're eating and how much sugar is really in that food, because you know, you might have somebody says to me, you know, like, you know, a client will come to me and they'll say, oh yeah, but I have a salad every day. And then when you break down what's in the salad, then you go, oh yeah, there's some dressing on top of there. I'll put some croutons on. There you go. You've like, you know, you've lost all the benefit of that salad. You know? So it's being conscious of what you're adding, really. There's so many different versions. Like, you know, if you want to make your own, you know, dressing, apple cider vinegar with some lemon, with a little bit of honey, or some balsamic vinegar with lemon and some olive oil. You know, there's multiple different things that you could do, which you're making your own, and you know exactly what's gone into your food. It's when we don't know what we're eating, because we're eating something which is processed, or, you know, that we're just adding it, whereas we just look at the label and assume that they're telling us the truth. You know, absolutely. No sugar added, but there might not be no sugar added, but there'll be aspartame in there, other sugar mimickers in there, which are worse for you, you know. So, you know, one thing with sugar, unfortunately, there is no healthy sugar. We all have to accept that. So, you know, whether it is honey, whether it is xylitol, whatever form you're having, whether it's stevia, you know, they are actually all going to turn into sugar in your body, okay? They might not be as processed, but they're going to turn into sugar, and that's going to have the same impact on your physiology as having a tablespoon of sugar. So, you know, just we've got to accept that, actually. Yes, I'm going to enjoy my treat when I want to have it, but otherwise try to avoid it as much as you can. And would you say that there's lesser evil? Like, when some people, like, especially from the Asian community, they love sugar and tea and like a lot of sugar. So let's say they were to cut it down. So what is the lesser evil, if I if I may, to then go for that?
Well, sugar, I would say to change, say if you're making I mean, don't get me wrong, I eat sugar, you all know. So, but like say if I'm making a treat, I'm making some, I'll try and avoid. So if you're going to have wheat in there, that's going to turn into sugar, right? So, and so it's changing that. So you can do like black bean brownies instead of doing, wheat brownies. I do a banana bread, which is made with almond flour, and it's got maple syrup in, and you use actual cacao powder, and then your sugar can come from fruit. So as long as when the bananas are ripe, so if you're making a banana bread and you're using really ripe bananas, they are full of sugar, right? So it's a natural sugar, and that combination with some maple syrup is going to be really sugary anyway. And I'm not saying that the gluten-free treats are any much better for you, but at least you're taking one sort of bad ingredient out, as opposed to. But the trick is to have less. Like, don't deprive yourself, because psychologically, if you tell your body you're not going to have that, your mind's going to keep thinking about that one thing that you've told yourself you're not going to have. So try to have, just try to, as opposed to having 4 biscuits, try to have 1 biscuit. And eat it slowly. If you chew that long enough, as we're told to do, for our digestive process, that will last a lot longer. And and you always remember that once you've had the hit of sugar, it's gone. It's always going to be gone. So it's just try to surpass that, isn't it? So in terms of lesser evils, I would say cinnamon is a going to give you that sweet taste. Licorice will give you a sweet taste as well. Which will be quite nice, and that's very soothing on the gut as well. So think about naturally sweet sugars. Obviously, your honeys. Manuka honey is great. It's got antibacterial properties as well. But the only thing with honey, never put it into something hot, because you are killing the bacteria. So if you remember, we mentioned about live bacteria. So if there is live bacteria in it, then you're killing the bacteria, it seems. So if you put it into hot, you're killing the bacteria. So always have it in room temperature if you're going to have some honey. Otherwise, you're just having sugar and you're taking all the benefits away.
That's really interesting, because then people putting honey in the tea is like, it's redundant. It's not doing anything.
Yeah, absolutely. But the honey they're probably putting in, I mean, ideally what you could do is just find, local to everyone, there's farms. So actually that honey is better for you anyway, because that will have the pollen from your surrounding areas. So a lot of people with allergies, when they have their local honey, it supports them. It helps with them, because it's naturally, because you are intolerant probably to the pollen in your area. So then if you have the it's a natural immune response.
Yeah, absolutely. And one question, going back to like when we were discussing about plastic containers and stuff, obviously, we said either ceramics or glass containers, but a lot of the glass containers have plastic lids as well. So
I mean, you can find containers which are glass, completely glass, and they've just got a rubber seal. Okay. With the plastic containers, just make sure the food's not touching it. So make sure your food is completely cool. It's not so bad if the food is cold. It's when the food is hot, and then I don't have a microwave, so it's a big choice. I know it's a very difficult choice for a lot of people because of the convenience of it. But don't put that plastic lid in a microwave either.
Okay.
And try not to, people have the plastic covering in the microwave as well. Try to avoid that as well.
That's another one. So ideally you should be using a glass.
The jars, they have metal lids anyway. A lot of the jars have metal lids.
Yeah. So also in the microwave. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was saying in the microwave, you usually have a plastic lid, so it's advisable to use like a glass plate or another. Okay.
A glass plate over it to cover it. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. And so I think I had an additional question about anxiety that we've already discussed, like talking about sleep and, generally, blocking.
Another thing for anxiety, you can get so lemon balm tea is great for anxiety. So you can have that. Just, it's very calming, very soothing. Chamomile tea is very, very calming as well. And getting into your sleep routine. And then in terms of supplements, there are certain supplements which are called adaptogens.
Okay.
And adaptogens, they work with regulating your own natural needs. So, so when you take them, they respond to what you need. So ashwagandha is a great adaptogen. So there are different adaptogens that you can use to support, you know, the system. But again, if anybody wanted to talk about supplements, they can just, you know, email me, or happy to discuss that. Yeah, but sleep routine is a massive one for anxiety.
Yeah,
massive.
And the last question that I have is from someone who's in their mid-30s, and she said that since she started her period, like, you know, the teenager, since then she's been putting on weight, and she's had all sorts of tests. She's not diabetic. She does not seem to have any thyroid issues, and she does not have PCOS. Like, she can't get to the root of it, like what could be causing it.
That would be very difficult without knowing what she's eating.
Yeah.
So if I had a food diary, then we could break down the food diary. But again, it could be the microbiome. It could be, we need to ask her, has she had quite a few courses of antibiotics, which eradicated the microbiome? Because the microbiome, if you are not taking the nutrients from the food, one, it's going to affect your energy, and two, it's about breaking that food down. So remember last time I said about, you know, it could be stomach acid that's not breaking that food down. It could be digestive enzymes in the gut that's not breaking the food down. It could be what you're eating. It could be that she's intolerant to certain foods. And, you know, so it would be a case of looking at a host of factors, looking at, you know, medical history essentially to work out what could be supporting that. It could be lecithins. It could be the lectins that she's eating in a food that is not, you know, that is not, is she a meat eater? Is she vegetarian? You know, there's a host of different things that could be responsible for that. So is she exercising? What is the lifestyle like? What's the sleep routine like? You know, everything we've mentioned today comes back to the whole umbrella about having sort of a healthy mindset with a healthy lifestyle, really. So so we would have to look at
deeper into it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, great. Thank you so much, Rosy. It's been another really, really insightful session. And again, really a lot to go back to and like put my notes down. Thank you so much. It's been so informative, and I'm sure people will really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And yeah, I hope you have a, you know, great rest of the day and the weekend. And I'm sure we're going to be coming back to you with some more follow-up questions. But thank you so, so much for your time today. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.